Obsidian gathering online. I'm Brian Prince. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Marquise Johnson, a co-organizer for the event.
Cool.
I'm Howard Palmer.
Yeah.
I like parkour.
Yes. It's funny. I feel like all of us are like the same kind of person where if someone was like, what do you do? We're like,
Well, I like parkour because I'm here for change. You know, I'm an advocate for that. So
yes. So we obviously the first talk starts at 10:30, or sorry, starts at 10 o'clock, excuse me, Pacific Standard Time. It's currently 9:30 Pacific Standard Time. So we wanted to just pop on now, give a welcome and start just letting people know like what we're going to get into and what we can expect today. And I kind of said this a little while ago. If you are just joining us, if you want to just go ahead and pop into the chat and say where you're from, how you heard about the event, what you're looking forward to today. I believe we also have a little, I don't know if the Q&A is open to them now, but I think that will be an option certainly coming up. So we got 2 talks planned for today and 2 talks planned for tomorrow, same time, both days. Today, the first talk at 10 o'clock is going to be Parkour and Police. And the second talk at, I believe, let me just make sure my timing is right. The second talk planned for 12:30 PST is the Being a Professional talk about parkour and professionalism, which I think is going to be really interesting. So here we are, Obsidian Gathering. What is this? What is this all about? Actually, so I guess, Marcus, if you want to take it off and I'm going to throw it to you if you want to talk about the first Obsidian Gathering and how that came about and how you guys wanted, like what the idea was behind how that event came to be.
Yeah, if I'm honest, the origins can be a bit cloudy, but David and I were in a group of people walking, just having a good conversation. But the idea that there hadn't been an event that highlighted a number of, Black athletes within parkour or athletes of color, like at the end of the day, parkour is a community that is predominantly Caucasian. And then we see that normality in all of our events. So we just thought, why couldn't we put something together where it still brought everyone together, but we emphasized, people who may not often get that same spotlight, while also being able to come together and have conversations about our different experiences within the sport. And David accomplished getting that first event together in DC in 2017. And, they were able to, go to the African American History Museum and really just bring people together. I personally didn't get to make that event. So it was really important to just be able to recreate that, whether it was in person or online, or just continue that same idea however possible.
Yeah, and like so I'm doing some chat responses right now. That's awesome. And then you ended up crowdfunding it, right? And then that became the first OG back in 2017. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was some involvement from Strike with T-shirts and donations, and got to get everybody on the T-shirt. And I wish I'd gotten to play a bigger hand in that. And I hope this leads to making it an annual event.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about like 2 months or 3 months ago, even a little bit earlier than that, with Cordelia from Parkour Visions, and we were talking about doing another OG, and then that's how I got pulled on board. And obviously, because of COVID and the world currently, like in-person events just aren't really an option. But then we started talking about potentially doing something online, which as somebody who loves like the in-person energy of a parkour jam, I was like, I don't want to do it online. I definitely was like, I don't want to do that. I want people. But then I finally accepted that that might be a while before that's an option. But then we thought about like, what can we do? Like, here we are, like we can do this online event, follow up to 2017 OG. And then obviously we can't ignore all of the like racial tension that happened in 2020, big year. A lot of stuff happened. And one thing that I feel like I saw as a result of that is just a lot of conversation, but a lot of conversation in the form of like Facebook comments. And I have a thing that I like to say, actually, it's not even my thing. Brene Brown says it. She has a saying that's, it's hard to hate people up close. And the idea of this is that it's easier to remain anonymous behind a wall of text, but when you're having a face-to-face conversation, especially about something more serious, it's harder to take the vulnerability out of it. It's harder to not listen, and it's harder to not share from the heart of how you're feeling. And so one thing I wanted to do with this event was have these conversations, these serious conversations that we've been having one way or another. But instead of like trying to make a point or be right or argue, I really just wanted to get some people together and talk about shared experiences, and less about, it's not even that we're like arguing, debating, and trying to find a single truth. I have a belief that, we all experience the world in a different way, and the only real way to find like the truth in it is to like get all of those experiences on the table. It's like everybody's putting their experience on the table, and then we gather it all up and sift through it and see what it's all about, and see where the common threads are. And so that's one of the biggest goals for me with this event, is just getting a bunch of people together, people of color, people that have gone through many different experiences from many different backgrounds, and being like, what is yours? Like, what's your experience? What have you gone through? And so that's, and for me, that's definitely the biggest thing that I want to get through, that I want this event to accomplish. So I'm honored, honored to be here, honored to be pulled on board, because for me, let's see, I've been doing parkour for about 12 years, and I think parkour has become one of the most important things, one of the most important things in my life, both because of community and the activity itself. And to do something that can help strengthen the community and bring things together, I think is very important to me. I think we all have a lot more in common than we have different. And I think, I create a space where we can like come together and speak on that is just something I really want to do.
Fully agree with that. I think I'm just excited to hear what everybody has to offer today. I mean, even in planning, the biggest acknowledgement was just my experience isn't the same as your experience. It's not going to be the same as anybody's experience that we talked to today, or anybody who's attending who has any questions that we can answer. I think the biggest thing that I want to take away from all of this is just that we can dispel the thought that a community such as parkour doesn't need to have conversations like this. I mean, a lot of people want to keep, politics and, just different social conversations out of what they find fun, but at the end of the day, we're all people interacting, and those things are going to come up.
Oh, 100%. I love that you said that, because so like for me, 2019 intentionally was my year of uncomfortable conversation. I had this realization towards the beginning of the year. Actually, it was the end of 2018. I just had like a lot of weird personal stuff happen, and I found this common thread that one of what seemed like a cause or a big part of a lot of those challenges was my inability to stand in an uncomfortable conversation. Like the moment a conversation got uncomfortable, I was like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like I'd like freeze and just like want to leave. And I think I heard it somewhere like in a podcast where the speaker was saying like, a common thread among successful people was the ability to have an uncomfortable conversation. And for me, it went beyond success. It was just like, oh yeah, why is that? Like, why is talking scaring me? And so what I realized throughout that year was that the more I like engaged in conversations that I found uncomfortable, it's like working out a lot. Like I found the outro of that, the feeling of clarity and just knowing where I stand with this person, like, oh, it felt so much better than the fear did before. And so I started kind of using that as a catalyst to engage in some of these conversations. And it just really changed my whole life. If there's one thing I could recommend to people, it's get used to having uncomfortable conversations, because they're not as uncomfortable as we think. Not all the time, but a lot of time they are. And so your point, yeah, I think it's one thing I would love to see in the parkour community as well, as people choosing to engage in these difficult conversations less defensively or aggressively, just, and be like, yeah, I'll listen to this. Like, like maybe I can learn something here. Or the other way around, being like, I have a perspective that might make a difference if I share it, and maybe I should share it. Or not should. Should's a bad word, but maybe it would be nice if I shared it. So
At the end of the day, I don't think we're going to run into anything that's going to be absent of value in this weekend.
I agree.
I would agree with all of that too.
Awesome.
I think the biggest thing is just to keep it open and keep opinions open in that way. You know, I love the idea of our community and this community. Like the idea of it is how it continues to grow. We were talking about it earlier, how we just moved out to different lives, not just states, and still kept that at least that one thing that brought us together initially, you know, the idea of creative movement, and then what it looks like for us individually, and then what are the things that we're good at, or what are the things we really like. And, you know, here we are years later and creating a platform for this conversation. It's been a conversation for years and it will continue to be, but to Marquise's point, it should not be a conversation, right? It shouldn't be something we run away from because we want to be happy. We should be happy to talk about it, or at least express our feelings about it. A lot of our movement comes from our feelings. So why shouldn't we be able to talk about that on some level? So thanks everyone for coming here, you know, or taking the time to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Quick note, anyone who's already here, I am collecting any questions you might have for today's talks in the chat, and we're looking to have a Q&A section towards the end. So feel free to just put those in at any given time during the conversation, and especially repeat questions, I'll be taking those down.
Cool. And you know, just reiterating, this is like our intro, hello, welcome. At 10 o'clock, so in about 18 minutes, we're going to be starting our first talk. In about 3 to 5 minutes, we're expecting our first panelists to roll in. Like Dan. Hey, Dan, welcome. Good morning.
What do you do?
Yeah. Garrett's in the room too.
Yeah.
Hey.
How's Garrett Moore, assistant with tech? What's up, buddy?
What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Shout out to Mark Turok real quick. What's up, Mark?
Oh, I see. Hey, Mark. So cool, so cool. And yeah, one thing I want to say too is that, so if we look through the conversation topics we have planned for this weekend, we have, you know, Parkour and Police, you know, intersectional diversity with LGBTQ and women. We have professionalism in parkour. We have non-American experience. So one topic that I wanted to add in the beginning was something about mental health, because I'm a huge advocate about mental health. But then what I kind of realized is like, it's all about mental health. Like this entire event is about mental health. Mental health is more than just, you know, lighting a candle and you know, taking the bubble bath, which is also very important, and we should all do that very often. But it's also like it's being able to talk about these things that are on our mind. I have this personal belief that like the brain in some ways, or the brain and the heart, is sometimes like a refrigerator, and we store stuff in it, but if it stays in there too long, it just goes rotten, and then it rots everything else inside of it, and then you either got to clean out the whole thing, and it's going to take a long time. So I really want to create a space where we can talk about these things that are plaguing us around our mind, or just like, you know, how we feel and how we think. And so that's something I'm really excited to get to this weekend.
I love mental health. That's like a big step for me back in 2020 and moving forward into this year. A lot of what I do with my brand, even the idea of promoting, it comes under that umbrella. And so I might promote those ideas. Real quick, shout out to Dan for being such a major part of Parkour's Black Equity. Him and Rashid pretty much stand up as the guys that do the interviews, you know, there's background stuff coming from me, but they take the lead on that. And that's in part with what I was saying earlier about the creativity and even the mental health. We don't know each other, but we're willing to grow together. Like that speaks volumes, you know, that speaks volume to the idea of what we believe in. And the mental health aspect of what it does, whether consciously or subconsciously, initially, it just feels better. It just feels good to know someone's out there to help you or be a part of what you want. Whether you talk every day, whether you agree about the same things, you just want to help each other. That is a big aspect of the health industry, like, you know, when it comes to like medical services. But as a people, we're just finding that that's what we do. We help each other. Some of us do come from backgrounds where we have the parents, they're like I'm stressed. oh, well, go stress those grades, go stress those dishes. Like they just, but what I saw of that retrospectively, right? What I saw about that on the other side is that they were coping too. These were people showing us like, yo, I'm coping, I don't have time, but they couldn't even say that. Now, granted, as a child, you're like, you know, they don't understand me, but here we are as adults kind of experiencing the same thing. You know, real quick, Dan and I met right around the death of Ahmad. And honestly, it was very hard for me and him to talk at first because there was this wall between the conversation that to me never existed. Like, yo, how are you doing up there? How are you doing over there? How's it going? You know, we had to talk about life before we even had to talk about who we were, you know? And there's the idea of having that ground to support each other. Mental health matters. Hashtag one time.
Absolutely. Oh man, I love everything you just said, especially the intergenerational trauma part. That's something I've been seeing a lot. It's like,
yeah,
the thing I don't think I even knew about before a year ago, and now it like kind of took over my year because it's like that whole point of like forgiveness and that way where people are like, I'm not gonna forgive someone, but it's like, but when you're like, no man, like when that person was going, like they were coping too. Like you nailed it with that sentiment. They were coping too, and like, you know, something might have happened in a way that you didn't love, but like when you see like why it happened from that point of view, it just makes it like easier to understand at least. So before, like since we're here in the intro, Howard, could you give us, can you talk about Parkour Black Equity?
Yeah. Real quick, real short. It all just came together for me. I was going through a lot of what was happening to us. I was having my own experience as well. I fell into the environment of turning around and looking back at my community as parkour and wondering, where were all of us? Like in particular, like Brian, David, and Marquise, because I grew up with you guys. Where were we? You know, we're now adults. And what did it mean to us back then when we were moving and deciding to be sponsored and going through all this space? And then I saw that article in Move Mag and the whole idea about what was going on. I think it was before February, and Dan was in it. And it was literally talking about his message and the focus there. And then I started thinking about Daryl. And then I'm like, wait a minute, there's DeAndre, there's Daryl, there's Dan, we're already here. But why aren't we here? Where's our platform? And I'm like, well, okay, do we need a platform? Because, you know, every time we try to do that, there's this whole conversation behind that. And I'm like, Daryl really holds that space about like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, well, what if we just have a space where it's just like us showing off? Like, F all the good stuff, we just showing off. What if we just had a platform where we're just showing off? And it kind of initiated out of that. So I created that email or that message group and just asked you guys and asked everyone like, what's going on? What do you think about this idea? I think it came from me because I was my history in it. I used to travel a lot and go around and meet people and intentionally try to learn about their environment with parkour. Created a whole platform about it. But it wasn't about me anymore in my mind. It was about sharing everybody else's mission. Because now we have a mission with all the things that are happening with us directly and to us. We have a mission now with our movement. So the platform or the Instagram or the idea came along, and then everyone who participated formed in. I didn't have to ask for much more than they just felt like, yo, I can't believe, of course, this makes sense. And so we just started doing it. Right now, it continues to be that, just a platform that shares us showing off. I manage most of it, if not all of it, the idea of just posting and talking. As I said, Dan and Rashid do the interviews. I do interviews as well. But it's really just to have a platform. Back to the mental health aspect of somewhere we can go. Growing up, Marquise and Brian, you can attest, there was no platform for us. We had Overflux, and we had that idea of the forum. Yeah, I remember Overflux.
Oh yeah,
I was not there for that actually.
Oh, okay, well, it was not this, you know, and it wasn't an even example of OG or Parkour's Black Equity, and we didn't know we needed it. more than now what we have it's like it's here. So that's what it is. That's what it continues to be. I plan to create free items just off the strength, but just a place for us to share and promote. The more I get tagged about it or hear about other Black people, I'm gonna repost it. We continue to find highlights and interview people for the month because they deserve it, straight up. If there is something we could give them to even giving us the space to allow us to share their unique art, we would. And that's the way I'm thinking about it in that way. The more we interview, the more people get involved to want to share it, the more we give them something in return. That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, representation.
Is it cool if I jump in?
Yeah, Dan, yeah.
Sick. Yeah, I actually, when Howard made the chat, I was in a position where I was kind of like searching for more interaction with like Black people in general. And I'm frozen here. Can you guys still hear me?
I can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was really looking for more interaction from Black athletes and Black people in general. And like I had written that article in Move Mag called I See You. And at the end, there's like a last paragraph where I'm just like naming all these athletes, these Black athletes that I know, but like I actually didn't really have connections to these athletes. Like I hadn't really talked to them or interact with them outside of maybe seeing them at a jam or two. And then Howard made this chat and there were like 30 something Black athletes all in this chat. And it was like a breath of fresh air. Like I was like, oh my God, like this is what I've been looking for. And it didn't even occur to me that we could even do something like this.
Yeah.
And then it really developed into like this beautiful thing where we now have, like Howard said, a platform where we can tell our own stories, you know, instead of like being like this solitary, like sparse, spread out group that needs to be advocated for, we can do that ourselves. And honestly, that's part of why I've been like so intensely into Parkour's Black equity and like doing our interviews and having those conversations, because it really feels like we're in charge of our own stories. And I feel like that's so important for us to have, especially when we know that for us to be visible is to like, at this point, it's like to survive. Like we have to be seen if we're gonna make it as a people, if we're gonna make it in the parkour community. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's good. Representation matters, and like being able to see yourself in the media.
I want to take one note to kind of, I've mentioned this a ton of time.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Just one more time for just off the strength. Yeah. Shout out to Daryl for all your work, man. I don't know you, man, but I continue to just love your energy. You know, I want to say it out loud in front of everybody. I love your energy, man. I love what you do. For me, it's never cringeworthy. I'll again be honest up front. I think you're powerful in that way, and just keep at it. Even if we never meet from this space, just keep at it, bro. Keep at it. Be strong, you know. And I support you as best as I can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're actually, so like I feel like this is a really good time to just start transferring into our first talk, because I feel like all of the panelists are here. Yeah. So let's just do like a quick round. I think that doesn't even have to be quick. We got all the time in the world, you know, permitting to how much we scheduled. But yeah, I want to give a warm welcome to everybody here. This really means a lot. I'm honored to be like facilitating this conversation. If anyone in parkour knows one thing about me, it's like I love poking my head in a circle and like getting people talking. So I feel like I'm like right where I want to be right now. If you're just tuning in, I'm Brian Prince. Welcome to Obsidian Gathering Online 2021. And our first conversation that we're going to be starting in about 5 minutes is about parkour and police and our relationship with those two things being Black. So I've been doing parkour for about 12 years now, and I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I currently live in Seattle, Washington, and I've been a little bit everywhere in between at some point. And I definitely think for me, I'm looking forward to this conversation because kind of similar to what Dan was saying, like in having more conversations with other like Black people and Black people my age, Black people in parkour, there were so many things that I started realizing like, oh, that's not just like a thing that everybody feels. That's a Black thing. Oh, okay. And so that's one thing I'm definitely hoping to get into in this conversation. So just going around the circle, and I'm gonna throw it to Marquise next. Let's just get some introductions going. And Marquise, you want to say what's up? I'm not sure he's stepped away. Okay, you might be at the bathroom or something. Howard, I'm gonna throw it to you then for that next introduction.
Howard, born and raised Jamaica, lived in Atlanta, loved parkour, been in it for a good while. Want to continue seeing it, people express their version of it, and be comfortable in that way, particularly for Black people. I think it's our art, straight up. And with it, we can continue to take over our life with it. And that's it. That's why I'm here. My screen below is David. So shout out to David. David's next.
Hey everybody. Hopefully my internet's working well. It's a little spotty right now, but can everybody hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound great.
All right. Hey everybody, my name is David Ivy. You all might know me from YouTube as Afro PK, and I've been training parkour since 2007, and I think in like 2017 or 2016 actually, I think is when Marquise and I came up with Obsidian Gathering, the idea. And then we were able to organize it, and I had it happen the first time in the DC metro area. And I'm really, really excited because I want to get really deep into some of
Oh, David, you're breaking up a bit. Let's see there. Okay, I think David froze. At least for me, he's frozen.
It's frozen for me as well.
Okay, cool. Well, let's give him a little bit of time to come back. While we're waiting for that, Dan, can I throw it to you you can start talking?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name's Dan Dye. I have been training parkour for 7 years now. Actually, my anniversary was earlier this month. And I'm based out of Detroit, Michigan. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. And I'm sponsored by Move Mag. I'm trying to figure out what I do. No, I've been teaching parkour for about 4 years now. I also, over the last 2 years, have started doing a lot more community work. We're actually like in an effort to get a parkour park built here in Michigan right now. And I also do a little bit of community organizing as well. During the uptick of everything that took place earlier in the year of 2020, I couldn't sit still, so I was out. And I also like have worked with a few political organizations and just like advancing, I guess, efforts towards Black liberation. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Nice, thank you. David, if you are back online, you want to continue with what you were saying? Thanks so much, Dan.
Yeah, so Marquise and I helped create the idea of Obsidian Gathering. I was able to run it in 2017, which was super cool. And I didn't get as deep into the conversations about like Black experience and stuff in parkour and just in general. And so I'm really, really excited that you all are, continuing on the vision and running it this year. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to talking about today.
Awesome, thank you. Daryl?
Am I being heard? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome, cool. Well, I'm Daryl, and most people probably know me by Wavezilla or one of the Wave monikers. And I'm the leader of the squadron, CEO and owner, as well as a part owner of Strike Movement, and just a all-around stand-up guy. Your friendly neighborhood jump man, and I've been I've been out here on this work for quite a while. 16 years actually. January 9th was my anniversary. So 16 years doing parkour. Thanks for the snaps, really appreciate it. And And yeah, I mean, I'm just this past few years, maybe like the past 4 years, I've been really trying to tailor my art toward the mission of properly representing us and being an example to Black people and just oppressed people all over, and trying to take this thing outside of what we currently know as the parkour community and make this art something that can be shared, versatile around multiple different platforms. So just trying to get us into all spaces in which we belong, because we belong in all spaces. And that's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. I completely agree. Thank you for that. So yeah, thank you everybody for being here, and also shout out to Garrett Moore. He's helping us on tech. I don't know if anyone's ever like run a Zoom, but it's there's a lot that goes on like at once. So I appreciate all of the help and organization. A shout out to Parkour Visions, especially Cordelia, for helping us, for really motivating us to get this event off the ground and mobilized. So many people to thank, and I really just want to jump right into this first talk. So once again, welcome to Obsidian Gathering 2021, Obsidian Gathering Online, and welcome to our first talk, Parkour and Police. So the way I kind of want to start this off is, I feel like whenever I do these Zoom calls, especially when I do talks like this in general, but especially when I do the Zoom ones, there's this level of, I don't know, there's like there's this weird kind of like heebie-jeebies like feeling in the first 10 minutes of like, oh, this is weird, we're all talking on the internet. So the way I like to try to dispel that is going around like, what do you have to say right now to kind of get present? Like, what's like that thing on your mind that you just want to like get off and just say what you have to say. For me, it's that I'm very happy to be here. I am very uncomfortable. And I just want to like say that, because is excited as I am, especially to see these amazing familiar faces and all these people in the attendees list that are here to support. It's like this is something very important to me, especially the conversation we're going to be having, and I almost wish we didn't have to, if that makes sense. It's like the idea of hope. Like, hope seems like this great thing, but we kind of need hope when the world sucks. So it's this weird counterintuitive idea. And so for me, it's like, I'm super glad to be here. I wish we didn't have to, but I also feel like we do. So that's kind of what I want to say. Just get present. Honored to be here. So I'm gonna throw it to Marquise next.
I did run off a minute ago thinking I had a second. For those who didn't catch my introduction earlier, I'm Marquise Johnson. I've been training parkour for 8 years now. Grew up predominantly in the Southeast, and now I'm based out of Boulder, Colorado. And for me, today is all about, in my own personal words, I think it's really just kind of filling this need for quote unquote Blackness in my life, if I'm honest. Growing up in the Southeast, it wasn't uncommon to be the only Black individual in my friendship circles, my classrooms. And then you find something like parkour, and that's really the first place where I've had a connection with people of the same background. So it's brought me tons of experiences and friends. And in terms of just having this event, I'm still really uncomfortable. I don't know that I feel as though I have much to say necessarily, and maybe the things that everybody else will say will help me open up a little bit along the way, but I'm super grateful for everybody that's here. And I think we have some of the best people to have at an event like this, especially you, Brian. I'll say that over and over again.
Thank you both for speaking. Since 2007, I was introduced to parkour. Where I came from in Jamaica, it's a community. There are white Jamaicans, there are Asian Jamaicans, there are Indian Jamaicans. We're Jamaicans. We're a community. It's no problem. We work together. We do what we have to do. We do what we have to do. There is a political as much as a religious separation on certain things. But at the end of the day, like I said, we believed in each other. We're humans, we make mistakes. When I moved to America as a young man, I wasn't accepted by Black people, much less anybody. My name was Howard Palmer. It was the 80s. Howard the Duck was out. It wasn't happening, son. I was being made fun of, my big lips, all of that. So personally, as I grew up in America, who I had to be was all about what it looked like to me. I honestly didn't step into the whole Black American mind frame, even when I became a US citizen, naturalized and all that stuff. I didn't step into that belief of myself, like that I wasn't Black American. I was African and I lived in America. So to me, the African American experience, I watched Malcolm X, I watched Roots, but I wasn't watching Soul Plane. I wasn't watching anything that was derogatory. It took me a second to even watch Friday because I didn't like the idea of that being Black or Black American, or that was the history that was depicted of us. So I realized too that it kept a wall between me and the Black Americans here. And when parkour came along, I was the only Black person in Georgia. Only. I met with Max and I met with these other guys and they trained and then they stopped. Then I'm like, okay, what do I do? With my history, I just keep going. I met Brian, his generation came along. Those guys just wanted to be known. I decided to go out to DC, meet Mark, whole nother life happened. Point being, it never became a thing to me that I was separate from Black Americans more than I was separated from the Black American story. And then I realized that some of them grew up in that story. Like they believe that story. Like that's their life. Like they are niggas. Like what are you talking about? You're what? No, who told you that? You don't know, man. You don't know. You Jamaican. No. And then again, the wall continues. So to me, that was very hurtful because I had to check myself that I was being somewhat systematically programmed to be separate from my people. And then when I'm like, all right, well, they separate from me too, but it's not our fault. You got to step up better than that and continue doing your thing as best as you can. You can't take your skin off and you can't take the history that's being a part of you. So what you can do is represent in your best version. And as hurtful or painful that as might be, because you might not get called, dude, I've gone around different states. And because I started in 2007, just over 14 years or whatnot, and I know I've made some, people have never heard of me. People have heard of someone maybe younger before and they're like, or in Georgia, and why that is important, it's not because of me, it's because of the work. How you heard of this kid who's white, who did this little flip over here, and then you got all these other guys you've never heard of Brian? You never heard of Nam? You never heard of these people? Why? And I realized that's why. It's because of our skin. And that's a problem. So it became really important to want to stand up and get more involved with us. And it's very painful and it's very uncomfortable. And if anybody's trained with me, I do racist shit. I'm cool. It's funny to me. It's not right. But it's how I cope sometimes. I gotta grow better too. I grow with my community. I love training with y'all. I love it. Call me anytime. But we also have to separate ourselves too because it's better for our health. We gotta train more together than with them.
Oh.
So that's my piece. Daryl, if you may, or whoever next. Yeah.
Ooh, can I go?
Yeah, David.
Or,
has a hand
or
up.
David, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for that share, Howard. That was good.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. That was awesome.
Mm.
One thing that I really liked about this whole idea and what I was thinking about with original OG is just that there are so many different versions of Black experiences throughout the United States and also all over the world. And so I was like, if a lot of people only have like the version of Blackness that they see through media, then they're not going to understand what my life was like, what other people's lives were like, unless they fall within that very, narrow definition or representation of Blackness. And so that was part of what I wanted to be able to talk about. And I'm happy, Howard, that you were able to like express sort of where you're coming from too. Personally, I have found, like, especially early on back in the day, I was sort of famous, sort of within the parkour community. And I feel like it was partly just because I was putting out videos like every month, like very consistently throughout high school. I was doing like a video every single month, sometimes two. And also parkour was super small at the time. And so people were able to just be like, oh, well, this guy's putting out stuff all this time and like he makes pretty good videos, so I guess I'll follow him. And so from my perspective personally, I didn't feel like parkour had a huge amount of effect. Like I guess my Blackness didn't have a huge effect on my reception within the parkour community because people are so focused on the quality of your movement or the quality of your videos as well, and like your consistency as well for putting out stuff like that. And so that was one thing that really attracted me to parkour. Like people, your race who you are will have an effect on your reception to a certain extent. But if you're really good, then people are like, hey, I don't know, like he's good, let's go train with him. But I never felt like I was getting a lot of like racism stuff directly within parkour that was having like a big effect on my experience with it. Granted, when I started, I was like 15 or 14, and I was training with a bunch of like people getting master's degrees in DC. So clearly the people that I was working with are pretty different. So I'm sure that had an effect as well. From time to time, I'd hear people say like somewhat slightly racial things within parkour, but generally speaking, my reception always felt pretty positive. The place that I mainly felt like I was getting a lot of friction was just through my police interactions more than anything, like when I'm training. But generally within parkour, it was like more or less okay. And at times I felt like it helped to be Black because most of the people that are making videos and getting famous in parkour are white. And so after a while, you're watching like a compilation of all the crazy stuff people did in like 2009 or whatever, and it's just a whole bunch of white dudes. So you're like, it's everybody's blending in. But if you're the one Black guy in the video, people are like, oh, you're that Black guy from the video, right? And so, I feel like everything, it has its benefits, has its drawbacks. So that's just my perspective on it so far. But we'll see. Who knows? This conversation might change my opinion. Who knows? Anything's possible.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I'll hop in next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, what I need to say to be present here is that I feel a lot of pressure to perform right now. I'm like, oh, Daniel, you gotta get this right because you are the ambassador for all Black people, right? But yeah, I was feeling a lot of pressure, but now I've said that, I'm feeling a lot better. And I also, I think there's a lot of things that go into why, Howard, you brought up a great point when you were talking about how there's not a lot of visibility for Black folks in parkour. And I always look back to my own experience where the only reason that I started doing parkour was because of like certain like privileges that I had as a Black person. Like one of those things being internet access. In the city of Detroit, there's 40% of the population who doesn't have access to the internet. And like parkour is a sport that was literally born in the United States on the internet. That's one of the things that is the reason why I'm here today. Also, I had a friend, one of my best friends, he moved to North Carolina for 2 years. When he came back, he was talking to me about parkour. So I literally had someone who like left the state found out about parkour, came back, needed someone to train with, and I was like his only friend that would have been down. And I even fought him for a long time. And like, I just think about how there's so many factors that play into like who we see participating in parkour today. And I'm honestly like extremely lucky to be here. You know, like the cards just fell in the right order for me. But I really want us to get to a place where there are more people like us that have access to this sport, because I believe it does have a lot of benefits for the kind of people we get to become in the world.
Thank you. Well, you're playing the cards you were dealt, so I appreciate that. Daryl, you want to follow that?
Yeah, I guess I'll hop in and say a word or two. My idea of being present, actually, I don't think that this is where it started per se, but there was an event that, like, OGs will remember this. If you guys like remember seeing parkour when it was like an early fad on television, like when it was on every network for a good minute, ESPN had a segment called E60, and Ryan Ford was on that. And there was like a room of people who work for the E60 team or whatever. And there was a black lady, and it was like very upsetting. And she's like, this isn't something that black people do. Like, she saw the videos that were being played. She's like, this is not what we do. And that hurt me then. This was before I was necessarily even like fully immersed in like my own blackness, because that's just not how we get to grow up here, feeling like we can be black, feel like we don't want to be black most of the time. And that was something that actually pissed me off, because I was like, that was a moment where I was like, I'm black, I do this sport. Sebastian Foucan is one of the founders of this fucking sport. Like, he's black. That's a problem. You know what I mean? Like that was even said. And a lot of my movements, coming up, I think that was in 2006 that aired. But like, a lot of my efforts since then have been, I guess, subconsciously trying to change that viewpoint, that this isn't something that we do. Because realistically, if you're from the neighborhoods that a lot of us are from, you see us doing this, like, just not doing it, calling it parkour. You know what I mean? Like, this is from where I'm from here in the Bay Area, to my homies in LA, to, homies in Detroit where Dan is, in Georgia, in the South, like in all these places, Louisiana, where my grandma and half my family's from. I mean, we do this. We do acrobatics, we do climbing, we jump, all that stuff. That's what we have available to us in our neighborhood. So I took offense to that comment early on, and have, I think, subconsciously, at least up until the last maybe 6-7 years, have been trying to disprove that. And that has been mostly for myself. But I see, and I have experienced over years, actually black athletes in the sport, that have said to me, it's refreshing to see a black athlete at a really high level. Like, that's really inspiring. And for me personally, at the time, I wasn't necessarily thinking that way. I was thinking more like for myself to disprove that, but I was disproving what this woman had said for other people. And that was when I think my real journey to like be a black athlete, like a notable black athlete, started. So like, that's my I guess my presence in the space is tailored toward that goal. And like many of us who have had to almost repress our experiences and traumas that we've experienced within the community and outside of the community, I'm still, it's almost like having, like, re-experiencing experiences and understanding the context now that I'm in a mind state and a frame of mind to be able to acknowledge the impact that my skin color has had on my experience. So like I said, within and outside of parkour, these experiences that I've had, I'm trying to not only bring them to light for the entirety of the community to see, but also bring those things to light so that I can acknowledge them and properly address those issues so that I also can move forward and help others do the same. So that's where I'm at with all this. That's where all the projects is going. That's where all the projects is coming from and have been for a little bit now. And that's why I am here today with all of you fine people. So that's my time, West Side.
That was awesome. Yeah, thank you. That definitely struck me when you mentioned the ESPN E60, because I remember exactly where I was when I watched that for the first time. I was in the computer lab in the art building at my college, and I was watching that. And as soon as that lady's like, "This is something Black people do," I like audibly was like, "What?" And then everyone in the lab was like, "Are you upset about something?" It hurt. It hurt. I was like, "Oh, great, here it is again." Black people don't do that. Like, not the whole not Black enough thing is just, it follows you like ghosts, and especially when you see like a Black person saying it, you're like, why are you keeping me out of this thing? Like, it's so thank you for mentioning that. And like, thank you everybody for sharing. There's a lot of things in there that I just found myself like nodding to audibly. And they're just like, especially the thing Dan said about oh no, I'm the ambassador of all Black people. Like, it's like, that is like, that in itself, tell me that's not one of the most Black experiences. You walk into a grocery store, oh, the other Black people in here? No, oh, I'm the ambassador of all Black people,
It's intimidating.
I'm the ambassador. And it's not even that, like, you feel it and you're like, is that even, I don't know if anyone else feels that, but I feel that way, right?
Yeah, it's like, this is your one chance to save all Black people is by not looking suspicious in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's like, who?
And to the point of something someone said in the chat, we almost have to use our white voices sometimes. Like, if we're looking for something, like, oh, excuse me, like, even though we might be just got off to, hey, bro, I'm gonna hit you back. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna holler, yeah, I'm gonna get that. Boom. Where's your Grey Poupon? Like, all of a sudden you switch up, and that's part of something we're not even taught, more than conditioned into. Yeah. And talking about inclusivity and diversity, the subject of today, kind of, not to jump in like that, but we include ourselves and exclude ourselves, like, immediately without training, without even being right. We dodging stuff.
Yeah.
So we step on the platform, like Dan says often, we kind of find ourselves as the only Black person in the room, like David says. And then we kind of find ourselves representing something we were just trying to do for ourselves, like Daryl said. Then, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're brought into these conditions, because they're conditions in my mind, without us even knowing it. And then we ask for our own inclusion, and they're like, well, we don't know if it's kind of gonna be that easy. Like, why do you have to have your own thing? What do you mean, why?
Yeah.
We're just trying to be, I'm asking, where's what aisle is the cereal on, in my best voice, even if I might be dressed in a hoodie and some pants. It's very hard to find our inclusion at times when we're just trying to be, more than even find out where I want to be or who I'm supposed to represent myself as. And I don't know if there's an answer, but it's so important that we continue to find space for it. I wish we were all rich, right? Throw money at it. It's like, But there's also Oklahoma, throw history in there, that they tried that, and they just burned the whole fucking shit down. Excuse me.
I want to get no. You don't need to be excused.
And maybe it might be different now, but I'm just going back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I I related to everybody's story.
Yeah, me too.
In my own way, you know? And even if I didn't, I feel it. Like to your point, Brian, you just feel it. Like, when you're driving and the cops pull up behind you. Hope I'm not doing anything that's not right, that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, like that feeling of I don't know, I think this is like a perfect transition. Like, I remember the first time I went to Japan in 2009, and we were walking around, and there were like police somewhere, and they, you know, they're like just being police, standing around, and I think we were with the Japanese friend, and I said something along the lines of like, "Oh, the police! Oh, it's like, oh, that's weird. I'm not scared when the police are here." And they were like, "Why would you be scared if the police are here? The police are here. You're supposed to feel safe." And I just had the moment of like, wait a second, like, hold on, wait, are you telling me you feel safe when the police are around?
That's the thing.
Like,
you do that? What?
Like blew my brain up for a second.
Yeah.
And it's like that might be one of the earliest times where I felt that, where I started asking myself, like, and then I think, no, that's a slightly, that's more of a healthcare thing, so never mind. But yeah, so this is a perfect transition. Like I don't know what's everybody's relationship with the police here, especially in a parkour context. I would love to hear that. And like relationship period, like it doesn't have to be like, I just want to hear your experience. For me, it's I grew up Alpharetta, Georgia, suburb about 30-45 minutes north of Atlanta, Georgia. And for me, my earliest relationship with the police growing up there was fear. And I really want to specify this to my experience in Alpharetta, Georgia, because, and I say Alpharetta, Georgia, and not Atlanta, Georgia, because even if I like had a scale there, I was much less afraid of the Atlanta police than I was of the Alpharetta police. Am I saying like they were perfect? No. But the Alpharetta police specifically were like, they were just like hungry. It was like, I'm gonna pull you over for anything. And like, it was just like terrifying. Like driving any night, driving back from Atlanta to Alpharetta, I would see like 6 to 10 people pulled over every time. And I've been pulled over in my life probably about 15 to 18 times. 2 of those times I got a ticket. Neither ticket I had to pay for when I went to court. But the point being, it's like I'm very familiar with being pulled over by the police. So that was that racial? I don't know. I'm not saying it was. I only live my experience. But so switching to like a parkour context, my relationship with the police in a parkour context is similar, where especially in those like suburban safer areas, they show up and they're just looking for action, gun on the hip, like what's going on? Because somebody called them, like there's a bunch of kids here jumping on stuff and I don't know what's going on. Because that was such a thing in Georgia, at least. Like people would not come up to us and be like, what are you guys doing? They would come up to us like either rage, like, oh, what are you doing? Or they wouldn't even come up to us and they just call the police, and then the police would come up to us. And so I feel like if I was able to take all of those experiences that I had to deal with the police, I think I'd have a minor in conflict resolution because I've gotten very good at like the police showing up and me being like, oh, I got to do the thing. Hey, and like trying to talk it down, like what's going on? This is what we're doing. I'm now the spokesperson for this entire situation. But it's like the fear is there. It all comes from a place of fear, because it's not me being like, oh, cool, police are here, I'm talking to them. It's like legitimately like I got to do this right, because if this goes wrong, I don't know what's going to happen. And it's just like this feeling of extreme like responsibility. So yeah, like my relationship with police, especially in a parkour context, is fear. Like when they show up, and it's not me saying like, I'm not even trying to like say like all police are bad, but I'm not stating a truth, but I'm saying like my personal experiences, when the police show up, I am afraid. Like, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear other people's experience on this, and honestly, like feel free to crosstalk to a degree.
Yeah.
We don't have to go one by one.
I got you.
Let's all just be like, let's be mindful of each other, of people getting chances to speak and letting people finish and whatnot. And feel free to ask questions and interject. So
Cool.
Well, let's stay in Georgia real quick, I guess. For me, I had pretty much the same experience as you, Brian. Only 2 years prior to it was just me, and the idea of me being the only Black person. We wouldn't train in Alpharetta. We just wouldn't go there to train. And no matter who wanted to train there, I used to go out and pick up people and then bring them down to, bring them down to Atlanta and stuff. And because I had, like, all realness, I had a white looking car, like a decent car, and my name is Howard Palmer. There was a very, 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 very high risk. I wasn't going to be bothered, just going back and forth to cities. So that space existed. And then when we trained together to find space just to train, the idea of like, okay, is this a area where the cops random, just come through? If they pass through here on a donut run or whatever they do we want to be in here? And then it's the other space of Karen or whoever thinking they need to do a citizen's arrest, and you're damaging a concrete wall with your human body. Okay, then, and you guys remember I was very bad with it when they came up. I was like, what? We not moving. Do what you, and everybody's like, Brian, I distinctively remember Brian's like, yo,
I'm gonna die.
I want to talk to you, dude. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. And I was like, yo, no talks. We not moving. We've been here. But to the point, I was still scared, but I just got so frustrated, dude. Here it is at that space. It was, like I said, Max and Chris had stepped away, and it was just, I was the only Black guy. Then you guys came along, and there was JB, and it was like to get JB even out of the gym, because he was the killer in the gym, but he never trained outside. And I was like, dude, get outside. He's like, I don't know about that. I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. And then we all started finding our space. So it honestly became like a mission, a way to upgrade, to be comfortable to train outside. Because the idea of going inside in a gym, to Evan's Dan point, he was by himself before he, he found it, and then someone came out of nowhere, and not nowhere, but left the state and came back and that's powerful. Now now you have a friend, and there's no gym, and you got to be worried about going outside. That's a lot to layer in. We're not even talking about there's no space to train outside. We literally can't even sit by this park bench and do a couple vaults over it without it seeming too concerning.
I'm gonna hop in. Yeah. It's funny that you said that, Howard, because my friend fought tooth and nail to get me to start doing parkour. And actually, one of the first things that I said to him when he was like, hey, we should do parkour. And I was like, we're gonna get arrested or shot. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, no way. I was like, we're not doing it. But growing up in Detroit, sometimes it resembles a military occupation, like in a third world nation. For me, I kind of knew police as like the boogeyman. Like, no one in my family was like cool with the police. We didn't talk to the police. If we saw them, we turned tail and we like didn't interact with them. And I've grown up in I grew up in like a fairly like violent area. So I like watched police do like drug raids like monthly, just pulling up like guns blazing, like busting down doors. And like, I've also had police like draw weapons on me twice. And I actually wasn't even doing parkour in either of those interactions. But my experiences with police in the outside world informed the way that I interacted with police in parkour. I developed a lot of skills for being respectable and safe, because I knew that police were not my friend. Like, I knew that when I saw police, something bad was about to happen. And that kind of has informed like my interactions with police in like regards to parkour. Like I luckily I've had run-ins with police that have like been fairly like safe in parkour. Like I've had police like watch me for like abnormally long amounts of time, but I've never had them like actually like try to do anything to me while doing parkour. And I think a big part of that is just, I kind of developed a lot of survival skills when it came to interacting with police. Like the way that I move my body, I kind of talk about this in the article, like it's almost like a switch flips when I see police and I'm training. I'm like, all right, Daniel, where's your backpack? Open your backpack, make sure they can see inside of it. All right, Daniel, how are you moving? Don't turn towards them too rapidly. Pretend that you don't even know that they are there. Now, this is all happening while I'm going through like mental strain of training. Like I'm working on like hard challenges. And at the same time, I have this chatter in the back of my head that's like, all right, Daniel, the police are here. Like, this is what you've trained for. Pay attention. Don't do anything stupid. And that's kind of, I guess that gives a pretty good picture of my relationship with police. Like I've never trusted them or like gotten along with them. I don't interact with them, and I make sure that I go to places where they are not coming, or the likelihood of them being there is extremely low.
Right.
Dan, answer this question that since you're kind of on that space, Owen asked, how do you feel about parkour as play, and how do you build back the feeling of safety after something awful hits the community, like the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, like just out running? You know, because I think you primarily being in such a community that's directly targeted, like straight up, you know,
Yeah.
you do have this switch. I know the switch, but in all honesty, I ignore my switch. I'm gonna still focus on the move and not stop because you pulling up. Point blank, it's real. So could you give Owen some space, or give the room a space on that, like the feeling back to safety after something awful like that, or just how do you even get back in the zone? Mm-hmm.
I actually never felt safe. I just felt angry. You know, when I saw what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, it kind of hit me like a brick, because I was like, dang, this kid was working out in public. And that's the reason he's dead right now. And I was like, I kind of do that all the time, especially during quarantine. I wasn't training in the gym. I was going outside every day to train. And I actually, for 2 days straight, I didn't leave the house. After watching that happen, I was staying at home, and I was just, I was on this like endless loop.
Crying all day.
Yeah,
all day.
I was on an endless loop, honestly, and it got to a point where I got so furious at the fact that I felt like I had to stay in the house, that I was like, you know, fuck this. I was like, I'm going outside and I'm on a train. And I was like, and if I get taken out, I get taken out. Like, but it wasn't like, I never felt safe when I would leave the house. I mean, I rarely feel safe leaving the house, because I know what's out there. But like, it just got to a point where I didn't want to sit and wait. Like I didn't want to stop living. And I felt like it was more radical of me and more like revolutionary of me if I went outside anyway than it would be if I stayed in the house and hid. So I guess personally, that's how I rationalized it in my head, but it wasn't like I felt safe being outside. It was like, I just didn't want to not do it.
David,
You know?
What do you think? David, did you ever feel safe training, especially as Afro? I do remember that space, dude. Like a real quick sidebar. Yo, Afro parkour was the shit, dog. Like you were doing some moves that, to the point, like what's happening now in that space of the community, like what Luke is doing. Like, you know, he's very creative and he's very unique. That was David for us. You know, and shout out again to APK for giving us the platform and giving you the platform for even showing the fuck off, you know. But I know safety for you around that space as well. And even Sam had a question too. So we got like these two things that are happening. I love Dan's answer. We never really felt safe. You know, it was more like, all right, well, now we're fully aware of what that space is like. So now we can put it somewhere hopefully in our mind, and it doesn't drive us crazy. Back to mental health, you know. And I don't ever remember I've never called the cops for anything. I've never felt like, you know what, this is the time when I need police help. Like never, you know, because again, our space is like, it could be historic. You got a problem, let's go. You know, one-on-one, knuckle up. You got a problem? I don't even want to hear nothing. Just forget that. You got a problem? Holla at your girl. Like, we found spaces. You know, it was never like call in police to help. But I don't know, has any of you guys ever had to call in the cops for help? And what does that feel like?
I personally try to avoid it at every given time I can. You know, I mean,
It's like a last resort.
yeah, like personal story just recently. I mean, I was living in my car for a while. I was parked next to a guy. We witnessed a hit and run, and not even thinking, being just like, you know, parkour person, always ready for action, be strong to be useful. I chased after the car and got the license plate. But then right after that, I was like, oh, I got to call the police now. Oh, I got to talk to the police now. Oh, they're going to ask me what I'm doing out here. What does that lead to? Is trying to help someone else going to cause problems for me tonight. And that alone just comes from previous experience. So no, I do my best not to call the police unless I really feel it's necessary. Because at the end of the day, I get nervous just being questioned, even though I know haven't done anything.
Mm-hmm.
In the group, Shaw is saying like,
Wait, really quick, before we go to the group,
yeah.
I want to go to David and Daryl on the police topic, and then I want to definitely come back around to some of those questions.
Oh, I thought you'd jump right in. I'm excited.
No, I'm glad. Like, I want to keep it going. I just want to get some of their perspectives, and then like
yeah.
keep it going. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, it sounds like my relationship with the police is pretty similar to pretty much everybody's here. As far as we've heard, I can't speak for people who haven't spoken yet. But yeah, like I really, as much as possible, try to avoid like every interaction with the police that I can, because it's always just opening yourself up for danger, even if you're, like Marquise was, an innocent bystander. Like, you don't know what's going to happen when they roll up and they are just hyped up for no reason. You're like, wait, I was trying to, now, how did this happen? Why am I in the back of the police car? So I don't even want to like worry about that. So as everybody else, I do really try to avoid interacting with the police. Brian, when you were talking about being the ambassador for the police emissary, I also really connect with that too, because I mean, I've just been training for so long that it doesn't really feel like unusual. I'm like, all right, the police are here. It is immediately my turn to go talk to the police right now, because like sometimes you're training with people and you know they can handle it. So you're like, all right, it's not a big deal if they get to them first. But like other times I'll be training with people and I don't know what their relationship is like with dealing with the police. And I can't always trust them on that. Like I remember I was in Northern Virginia training with one of my friends, or with a guy I know who happens to be white, and the police roll up and he starts freaking out on the police. I'm like, you need to get out right now because I am going to die. Like, you need to leave. I don't know who you are. Leave, walk away. Hello,
You're gonna
officer.
get me shot, bro.
Yeah, like you're going to get me shot. Like, because you're crazy. No, I'm not gonna die like that.
Yep.
So I'm like, hey, officer, sorry about that. We're doing parkour. We're gonna leave because you're here. We don't want any problems. All right, we're gonna go. All right, we're ready. Just let us get our stuff, and we're gonna leave. Where do you want us to go? Anyway, just tell us which way. Up that way. Like, I don't care. We're just gonna leave. All right, we're good. We're good. We're leaving.
You don't want to train with the crazy white friend.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't. That crazy white friend. Even though you want that friend around, if the cops show up, you also don't want them to go off the handle.
Yeah.
What's up with the face?
I don't want that friend around when I'm training. Like, I'm good. He can be friends with other people. I'm okay, because I just can't risk that. Let's see what else people said. I think it's strange that you all are training in front of the police, because like I just don't do that. Like, even if they show up and they're like, "Hey guys, how are you doing?" I'm like, I can still leave. I don't mind. Like, so yeah, just like. And for me, I find it especially unfortunate. Like, well, I guess I've had a slightly different interaction and relationship with police, because my dad has been like a criminal lawyer for a long time. And for a good period of 8 years, he was the prosecutor for the state in my area. And so like we'd have conversations with the police when they'd know who I am, that I'm related to my father, or something to that effect. And it would be different than when they don't know who I am. Like, for example, one day my dad had a car that was given to us by the state for the time, and my brother was leaning up against the car, and the cops just roll up like, "Hey, do you know whose car that is? And he's like, yeah, I do. And they're like, oh, we're gonna take you in. Keep in mind, my brother's like 12 at the time or something ridiculous like that. And he's like, this is my dad's car. He's the state's attorney. And they're like, oh, well, we'll catch you on something else. And like all of us have stories.
Oh.
Like every single male in my family has some kind of story like that. Some kind of story like that. Like Dan was saying, I almost got shot. I was doing parkour, but like it was crazy. Like just I was training out one day on federal property in DC. That is a normal thing to do, just so you know. Elsewhere, probably not. But I was training on federal property where I normally train, but it was like late dusk time or something, and the cop rolled out like with his gun out, like, who sent you? And I'm like, wait, what? What question is that? Like, do you think I'm Al Qaeda or something? Like, what is going on? This is the strangest conversation. But like, luckily, I had already had lots of experiences with de-escalating situations with the police. And so I was able to be like, hey, man, like, relax. It's all good. Like, you know, no, I'm just here. And so I think it's sad, like, as Brian said, like being able to have a minor in conflict resolution. Dan said something to the same effect. I think it's sad that that's a skill set that I have to have too. I really would prefer not to have it. I would really prefer to feel the way I feel when I'm abroad, because like Brian said, when he was in Japan, like people were like, oh yeah, I feel safe when the police are here. One time I was training in like the northwestern part of Spain and in Portugal, and people were like not happy that we were training. They were like, we're gonna call the police. And both times they were like, then call them up right now. And I was like, guys, what are you doing? Like, screaming internally, like, you all are gonna get me shot. I cannot believe this. Guys, like, I can't, how am I gonna send my body to my family? Like, this is terrible. And so like, but every time that I've had interactions with police abroad, it's always like, hey guys, what are you all doing? I'm like, you're nice. What is this? They're like, yeah, well, we got some calls. We just wanted to figure out what was going on. We're like, oh, well, we're training. And they're like, oh yeah, you're doing parkour. That's cool. All right, well, we're going to leave because it looks like you guys are on public property. So see you later. And I'm like, this is wild. Like, this is a totally different relationship. Like, I guess for me, the entire relationship comes from, it just feels like the police are like an occupying force. Sometimes they're not intensely occupying the area that you're in, but like, I've never gone anywhere in the United States and been like, today is the day that I'll call the police or see the police driving behind me or just walking around or whatever, and I'll feel safe. Like, it's never happened. Whereas when I'm abroad, depending on the country, like, you see the police and you know that you're not going to have any problems because the police are like not trigger happy or hyped up at all times. So, I mean, that's sort of where I'm coming from on like my relationship with the police. I'm really, really, really disappointed by the defund the police movement, not because of the goals that they had, but because of the terrible publicity thought process that went behind the whole title. Like, if we can look at Black Lives Matter, which should be a statement that's like unarguable against, like, I don't know how you can argue against that and say like, well, Blue Lives Matter too. Like, but that wasn't the conversation. We're just saying Black Lives Matter as well. So if we can take something so benign as Black Lives Matter and have people blow up about it and act like protesting to not get shot over existing is like something you should get strung up for, then why are you going to say something as incendiary as defund the police? Like, and especially with all the momentum that we had from the Black Lives Matter protests back in 2020, I feel like we could have gotten so much more done if we had some sort of like PR person say, you know, actually, maybe we should say like reform police funding instead as our slogan or something, you know? So that's just where I'm at in 2021. And yeah, that's the situation for me right now.
Thank you. Oh man. Daryl, you have I want to hear what you got to say about this.
Well, so to give some like understanding here, I've grown up around police my whole life, if not uncles or like family friends or whatever, or even my own dad, who was Oakland PD for years. And if y'all know Oakland, Like, I mean, people that ain't never been to Oakland just hear Oakland and know the stories about Oakland, or know, just even if they don't know the stories, they're just like, Oakland, that sounds like that's the hood or something. You know what I mean? Like, just everybody just assumes, you know, so like, you know, that's Oakland. You know Oakland. That's where my dad was a cop. And I was raised in a very particular way where there was no necessary there was no emphasis on, hey, you're black, police typically don't like us, like, you know, based on the history of this country.
We call that a white neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. That's just, so the thing is like, that was never explicitly you know, explained to me. However, there are things I know how to do specifically because of how I was raised, because of what my dad told me, my grandma told me, my uncle told me, you know, so on and so forth, that have, I think, kept me mostly out of danger for the majority of my police encounters in general, and also whilst doing parkour. However, you know, the things that have kept me safe most of the time are never guaranteed, you know. So like what everybody's saying, we know how to speak to the police. We know there's a certain way that we're supposed to speak, and there's certain things that we're supposed to say. One thing that I was always taught to say is, yeah, my dad's a cop, actually. My dad's Oakland PD. I know his like badge number and everything. So I have to like tell people that, or I have to say like, oh yeah, my Uncle Don is a police officer. He's actually one of the county sheriffs, like, you know, so that they know that somebody that they work with knows me or is related to me or something. So if they fuck up, they're going to have them to answer to. At least that whatever state of mind that they may be in when they're confronting us at the time might change. Will more than likely change. As soon as you say that you know somebody who is a part of their collective, let's just say, then they automatically will change up. They'll ask you questions like, oh yeah, oh that's crazy. And I've also had the other side of it where they'll be like, oh, well, what do you think your dad would think about what you're doing out here? And it's like, well, he knows I'm here right now, and I called him to let him know that I was here because, you know, I grew up like this, so he knows where I'm at all times, and if he doesn't know exactly where I am, he knows who to contact.
And why are you asking me about my dad?
Exactly. That's
why I gotta tell you about my dad.
Exactly. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we like know how to do, and that's one of those things that I was trained to know how to do. My mom actually last year, my mom gave me she printed out my dad's identification, his police ID, and she's like, you keep this in your wallet at all times, so if they roll up on you and say this, that, or the third or whatever, like, you pop this thing out and you show it to them, be like, this is my dad, just so you know, his name is also Daryl Stingley, and you're gonna have to answer to this guy if you and I have an issue, or this guy's the guy who's going to be coming through to chat with you if you got something that you want to do to disrespect me. So you know, all of my experiences have typically resulted in me, you know, changing to my other voice, you know, this specific voice that I'm using with you guys right now. You know, I'm going from talking however I'm talking, and then it's like, oh yeah, hello sir, nice to see you. Yeah, what's the issue? Oh yeah, my dad's Oakland PD, so you know, it's crazy.
But it puts you on such a very separate hard line, because they could be like, oh shit, this is his dad. Whatever we do, we got to cover it up.
Yeah.
You know, or we got to make sure we have our side straight and make his side look not straight. You know, like,
yeah. Yeah, I honestly, like, if things get too real, I just call him and put him on speakerphone, so that he's like listening to the whole altercation. But for the most part, like, you know, I handle it by myself. another thing that I was trained to do that, you know, it seems like David was trained to do this too. Like, I don't be training where police are at. Now here's the thing though. Here's the thing. If anybody has been to the Bay Area for like any reason to do parkour, you know how quickly police roll up. You know how quickly security rolls up. You know how quickly you're going to have an interaction with somebody because they don't want you doing whatever you're doing there. And it seems as though that is very much more the case when you're Black. It seems like, okay, first there's people here doing things I'm not really down with, but those are probably just kids, like just doing whatever. But then if you're Black and you're there, then it's like, automatically there, it seems like there's some sort of, that over there makes me uncomfortable if it's not doing what it's currently doing, and it's currently doing something that would make me uncomfortable if that wasn't the particular figure doing that thing. If that makes sense, that Black person already makes me uncomfortable. Now that Black person is doing something that would make me feel even more uncomfortable, let me call the proper authorities so that they can handle the situation. And like that is the particular issue that I have personally experienced very often here in the Bay Area. I've been to a lot of places. I haven't experienced police as bad as here. I've never been to Detroit, but I know about it. So I'm not even close to saying that's not real over there. And I've never been to NYC, so I can't say that either. You know what I mean? I've been right here in the Bay Area and experienced some very horrible encounters. Police walking up saying, "I will pull up, Shaw, just so you know." Police walking by, police coming up, and then they like tell you to calm down. Like they calm down with the left hand, right hand is on their holster while they're telling you to calm down. I know that trick. I know exactly what that means. You know, I've had numerous conversations with my dad, my uncles, all about exactly what that means. If their hand is on their holster, they're not putting their hand on their holster because they just like to keep their hands on their hips. They want their hand to be close to draw their weapon if they need to draw their weapon.
Playing a psychological game with you.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, like there's instances like that. There's the yeah, take a seat. Them telling you to sit down because they want to establish control over the situation, and they've literally told me that like it just needs to look like we're in control here, and I'm just like, okay, why do you need to be in control? Like, are you telling? Am I being detained? And that's the question that you have to ask. Yeah, that's the question that you have to ask. You literally have to know to ask, like, am I being detained? Yeah. Am I being arrested? And what you're supposed to be able to say if you're not being arrested, which you should not be able to be arrested without a witness present unless the police witnessed you doing something that is actually illegal. You should be able to say, well, then I'm free to go and walk away. But we already know how the walk away situation could go. I'm not getting shot in the back, so I'm going to stay here and deal with this situation until.
You can't even walk in reverse.
No, there's no way around it. So I'll conclude my my small segment here with a little story for you guys. So number one thing, I do not train alone outside almost ever, like because of this issue. I do not want to be caught somewhere by myself where I don't have a witness, or I don't have somebody that I know who can potentially be a shield. You know what I mean? And that's typically somebody who is not of color, who I have with me. But like I don't train outside alone. I have before, and I've been lucky enough not to get caught, but that's only because I am very, very vigilant. On the note of a question I was asked earlier, like how do you go back into the play mode after you've witnessed or experienced something horrific like what happened to Ahmaud Arbery? In my view, I've never ever in my 16 years done parkour publicly without having my eyes constantly like looking around. My head is always on a swivel, and I'm never 100% and fully focused on exactly what I'm doing unless I'm literally in the middle of doing it. Like if I'm in the middle of doing a line, that's the only thing that's on my mind at the time. But literally every second up until I start, up until the first move is done, up until the first point of contact is made, my mind is on looking around. There's no police. I'm listening for sirens. I'm listening for anything that might be, somebody being a little too vigilant of my movements. And all of my team can attest to this. I'm the most distracted person, seeming like, when it comes to doing these things. So like, and that's only because I'm constantly aware and vigilant. I'll literally be in the middle of starting a line and I hear something that I think is off, or I'll see somebody walking down the stairs that are somewhat in the point of view of me, and I'll just completely stop. Like I'll start moving and then stop, like, because I don't want there to be any reason that an altercation is brought up. So case in point, if you guys have seen Mel and Lynn's new video, Remedy, that was supposed to be a different project. Obviously COVID came in and stopped a lot of what that was supposed to be, and a lot of health complications, particularly pertaining to Mel, that stopped us from being able to continue the project in any other form. When we were filming that project, I took Mel and Lynn to a spot in Walnut Creek, which is a very white area in the Bay Area. Walnut Creek police are trash. And I do not mean that to every single one of the police officers that work there. I know that some of you guys are cool and some of you guys maybe just want to do the right thing. But all I'm telling you is your track record as a community is trash, especially to people of color. So that being the case, I know where we're at. I've been to this spot numerous times. I know exactly how to conduct myself at this spot. They were training. I was moving around, just kind of like scouting around the area. I was really looking for a restroom, and there's no like place for me to go or anything like that. So that's the main thing I'm out and around like looking for, like kind of scouting for more spots, looking for a restroom, maybe looking for a safe place to like be private and use and like, like take a leak right quick. You know what I mean? And I get back to them after being gone from them for a maximum of maybe 15 minutes. And they finish up what they're doing, and we are walking away from the spot. And as we're nearing where we parked, 2 police cars roll up on the corner in a blockade formation, which means that they come in like a V form at the corner, so that there's no way you can run. Like the only thing you can do is turn around and sprint away, right? There's no left you can go, there's no right you can go. They're on either side of you, and if you go run straight, you have to run through the middle of their 2 parked cars. That's already a red flag, right? This is an active intersection, and that's how they pull up. 2 officers get out. They address me specifically, bypassing both Lynn and Mel, who I'm with. And funny enough, Lynn has questions almost immediately, and I'm trying to deal with the situation because I know what they're here for. So I asked Mel and Lynn to walk across the street, but to keep their eyes on me.
Lynn lives in England.
Exactly. Lynn lives in England, so she doesn't know like about this. And she and I had actually been having multiple debates about the reality of the experience of Black people in the United States. And this really solidified it for her. They rolled up on me and asked me questions and said I fit a description: black-eyed, dreads, wearing green, like there can't be anybody else in this area at all. I just happen to be the one, right? Which is to some point understandable, but even then they pull up on me and they're asking me questions, and they don't have a witness, which, if anybody doesn't know this, if they don't bring a witness, they have no standing. Their investigation is the same as you walking up to anybody on the street and asking them questions. Like it's the exact same thing. It's the same amount of power. If they don't walk up with the witness, then there's no standing that they have. So I'm asking all the right questions. They're asking me for my ID. They're asking me what I was doing. I don't ever give my identification to the police if I don't have to, because then they put you in a database and they target you in that area. And anytime you're in that area, they can pinpoint you to any crime that happens in the area. You know what I mean? If you were there that day and a crime happened, they could call up and say, okay, he's one of our suspects, bring him in. So that's typically the reason why I don't even keep my ID in my pocket. I keep it in my backpack, or I keep it in the car where I can't like readily hand it to them.
I don't even have an ID.
Yeah.
Nope.
Great.
I'm not driving a car. What do I need an ID for?
Exactly. So they're asking for my ID and I'm just like, apologies. Like I don't need to give you my ID. And I'm asking like, am I being detained? And they're telling me yes for the duration of our investigation. And I said, what investigation? Where's your witness? And they're like, this is an investigation that we're conducting based on a call that we're responding to. And I said, okay, but am I being arrested? And they're like, well, you will be if you don't cooperate with our investigation, which is a big red flag right then and there. That's like an immediate, you guys are bullshitting moment. So, long story short, as they continue to get frustrated with me exercising my rights, that's when the hold on, calm down, and the hand goes on to the holster. Both of them, both cops, hands on the holster. And Lynn and Mel are just across the street watching, which they know that I got witnesses here. So I feel like that's part of the reason why I made it out of that altercation. And basically at the end of it, I was like, okay, you know what? There's no way around this. There's no way I get to leave and go home unless I give them my ID and essentially shoot myself in the foot right here for ever coming back to the spot. So I put both my hands up and I tell them I'm going to reach in my backpack and give you guys my ID. And they're like, okay. And I'm waiting for their hands to drop from their holsters. So when their hands drop and they do this, that's when I pop my backpack open and I'm literally unzipping it at them so that they can see what's inside the bag. Like what Dan was saying, reach in, grab my wallet, give them my ID, and they run all my stuff and call it in and everything just to get all my information and pinpoint me to that location, which they told me they were doing. They said, if something happens, if something later comes up that something happened in this area, we need to be able to place you. They literally told me that we need to be able to place you here. And I was like, okay, great. So they have my ID, they give it back and they say, see, that's all we wanted. All you had to do from the start was cooperate. And I was like, yeah, like, am I free to go now? And they're like, yeah. I was like, all right, you guys have a nice day. Fuck you. You know what I mean? And I walk across the street fuming. And the immediate thing I did was call my dad and ask him if everything that I did was correct, if everything that I did was in line with what I was supposed to do. And he told me absolutely. And he said, honestly, he also said, fuck Walnut Creek PD himself. You know what I mean? Straight up. Like he told me about an incident that happened not that long ago where they killed when they killed a black man who was having a psychotic break. His family called in and expressed it and everything. They called for the right people to respond.
The spit bag over his head and made him basically stifle.
And the wrong people rolled up and took his life. So you know
what it speaks to real quick? Something that I do here, and Marquise, I kind of share this with you here in Colorado. I'll just say that, I don't call anybody to train. If they call me, I'll show up. And that anybody is white people. I don't, because I tried that. Every time I call them to train, my experience, it's either when we get the cops to show up or some security guards show up, and they've never experienced that before. They're like, we come to this spot all the time. Mm-hmm. They've never said anything to us. Now, why? And I was like, it's because I'm here. And they're like, I can't believe it's that. And then they never call me again to come out and train with them. So I stopped calling. And to like even someone in Rashid's comment in our statement in the comment, I train alone. Like 80% of my time, I just go out, put on some headphones and do my best to stay in my space. I try not to go where I know cops are, but it's Day City. Where am I not gonna go? Sometimes they're just patrolling. And I'm at a public park.
There's like a psychological gap to it, man, where you're like, it's tough because like I think one thing that I really want people that are watching and listening to really get from a lot of these stories is it's one thing to be like, that's a crazy story, or I can't believe that happened, but it's like really empathize with that situation And like, I don't think a lot of people have ever been in a situation where they legitimately are thinking like, am I gonna die right now? While also having to like keep my hands up, show the backpack, do this thing, while having to be like, are my friends okay? Or what's going on over there? Like, there's just so much going through your head. And then like at the end of the day, when you get out of that, and like all you wanted to do was parkour. Are you kidding me? Like, I just wanted to go do parkour with my friends, and here I am in this situation. And to like that comment of like the always looking around, that's me too. That's a bit of a trauma response. I'll say that it's a survival mechanism.
On swivel, it's called head on swivel.
Head on swivel.
It's a term.
Yeah. And just like it's tough, because I think that's the one thing that a lot of that I have trouble connecting with when I try to have these conversations with people who don't want to hear. They're like, no, I can't believe that. And I'm like, it's just like, I'm not telling the truth. I'm sharing the experience, and like I just need you to empathize. Like, the last time you thought you were gonna die. Oh, never? Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
I ain't Call of Duty. Yeah.
I think that I think it's really important to recognize too that these experiences that we have don't appear in a vacuum. You know, like we're listening to a lot of individual experiences right now, but like unfortunately, this is a reality and a trend for Black people all over the country, inside and outside of parkour. And like, we kind of have laser focus on these things right now, but like, this is like a much larger issue. And there's like 5 different contexts converging on one point that's leading to us having this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. I did want to share, because we were talking about calling the police. One of the times that I've had weapons drawn on me was actually because of a call that I made. There was a issue of domestic violence happening in my apartment complex. And, you know, I went and checked on the person. They were like, I'm good. Like, it's all right. And then things kept escalating. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to call the police. And I remember feeling this hole in my chest as I'm dialing 911, because I'm like, I don't want this to go bad. Why would it go bad? That's what's running through my head, right? So I call the police. They're going to be here in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I walk outside of my building. I stand in the middle of the parking lot. I take my hoodie off. I'm like out exposed. It's the middle of November. It's a little cold, so my hands are in my pockets. And these 2 cop cars pull up. 4 officers get out. As they're pulling in, I'm like waving them down too. I'm like, hey, it's me. I'm the one who called you. Like, please, like, come over. Let's handle this. They get out of the car. I start walking towards them to explain what's going on. And I don't even get 3 words out of my mouth and weapons are out. And they're like, hey, get your hands out of your pockets. And I'm like, yo, I called you. I'm the one who called you. I need help. There is someone who is possibly in danger, who needs your help. But you're pulling your weapon on me.
This neighborhood is known for suspicious activity, so we just gotta be confident about how we interact with the civilians of this environment. Please get on the floor.
And yeah, I was just like, it took me a while to actually process that entire interaction. Like, I was torn up for like 2 weeks after the fact. I just felt like angry and frustrated and like confused. I'm like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? And then I'm like, shit. Like, you forgot what you look like, Dan.
It's like, can't take it off, bro.
Yeah. Like, your hands are in your pockets. That's a threat, apparently. You know,
might have something. That's what they always say. Like, I don't know what you might have, and that's some bullshit training that they get. And my dad has even told me that's how they. That's exactly how they're trained. You don't know what somebody might have, as opposed to, you don't know what somebody might be going through. Like you know what I mean? Like that's a real thing. So I mean, that's happened to him. That happened to him fucking 2020. He straight up had an issue with police and didn't have his badge directly on him and didn't want to say something that would trigger them without them having proof. So he straight up said, I know you guys don't know what I might have. So please accompany me into my fucking house and let me walk you down to my garage so that you can inspect the vehicle that you are questioning me about. And then once you see my badge in my gun bag, then you're gonna see how you fucked up. And that's a police officer that you're talking about. So I mean, if it happened to him, why the hell wouldn't it happen to Dan?
Yeah.
And I've never called the police, not once in my entire life. I mean, I have been told, call my dad. So you got a problem, you call me. So like not to step on Dan's like story at all.
No, that's literally the one time. That's the one time and the only time.
Yeah.
Also, can we get your dad's number on a t-shirt? I saw them talking about it in the chat. I'm like, I don't
know your dad, but you know what? Kazi, or was it Kazi or someone was saying that they wanted to know if they could get like instructions or pseudo walkthrough video.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate and say I don't want it. I don't want them
That's
to
true,
know
yeah.
we get training. Nah, son, you don't know nothing about me. I love that we need more safety, but it's, again, why?
Yeah. Also, really quickly, is it all right if I comment on something Mark just posted in the chat?
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to read it to everyone. He said, I think it's important to point out that police are sometimes in situations where they do have to worry about what is in someone's hand or pocket. This is no excuse for them to treat anyone badly. I totally get that. That's like a valid interpretation for sure. I think the issue is that the amount of violent police interactions that actually do happen, they're a very small percentage of police interactions. But you have police who are trained to respond violently in nonviolent situations on a regular basis. And you would think that with the amount of money and energy that goes into policing, that they would be a little bit more adept at interpreting the risky situations, because not every situation is risky and a very large majority of them are not risky. However, they're like hammer with a glass table all the time, and that's the issue I think that we're pointing to here.
Yeah,
for real.
I agree. Like the escalation happens so fast before any kind of
go to 100
tries to happen.
If I may, I apologize. Is that David coming in?
Yeah, no, you got it. Go.
I'm gonna be real quick. If I may, I would like to express something, because it seems like everybody's in love with my dad. My dad, I have had conversation. I love my dad to death. That's my superhero right there. And any Black man that was lucky enough to have his dad in his life, unlike my dad, knows like that your dad is often looked to as a superhero, especially if they were really supportive of you. So I know you guys are all like, hype up my dad, but I've had conversations with my dad where he's expressed like views that I've disagreed with, you know what I mean? And those views have only changed or altered because he's open to have the conversation with me. And he's also had the experience as a young Black man in a way worse time than what we grew up in. And he has the experience of having two young sons of color. I mean, I'm Black. My brother, who is not my dad's biological son, is half Black, half Mexican. The half Black comes from my mom, who is like, if you see her, you don't know she's Black. So if you see my brother, you have no idea that he's Black. He's just some like, they call it high yellow. That's the yeah, you all know.
Yellow man. Let me call him Yellow man.
Yeah. So like my dad's aware of those situations, but like the understanding is the only reason that any of his viewpoints as an officer, as a law enforcement agent of any sort, have changed or altered or evolved is because we have the conversations. And he loves me to death. He trusts me, his son. So if he thinks something that he thinks this is right, this is absolutely right, if I say something to him that he would disagree with, and I'm firm about it, he's automatically going to think, well, maybe I need to think about this some more. You know what I mean? And I think, and this is my perspective, I think my dad is like the baseline of what somebody in that position should be. You know what I mean? Because something that he tells me is, I do not want to draw my weapon. I will if I have to, but you should hope to never have to pull this thing out and shoot anybody like that. And that's not the case for so many officers. And it doesn't matter if it's not the case for most officers. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if most officers aren't necessarily violent. What matters is they have the power to be, and one life lost is too many lives lost. That's the issue. So the standard, I think that if my dad is an example, he is to me like, this is where they should start. You know what I mean? They should start here and they should get way better as they go up. And from my experience, that has not been the case. And obviously, from what we have seen in this country over the entirety of its existence, or at least the entirety of the existence of a formalized police force, that is not the case. Most people are looking for a problem, or they get into it specifically to respond to issues as opposed to actually making communities safer. Communities safer does not mean taking the lives of people you perceive to be bad. The community safer would be taking away the instances of bad society, you know, like the societal issues that stand between us and safety, like lacks of education, lacks of housing, lacks of occupation, and so on and so forth. So that's the only thing I want to say about my dad in that regard. He's great, but he and I have had this conversation before. I think that's like entry level right there. This is where you should be empathetic, not trying to cause harm, actually trying to help your community.
Yeah.
Good.
What I was going to chime in with is, and Daryl actually adds even more fodder, is the fact that a lot of the police aren't at the standard base level that Daryl's dad is offering for us, and that a lot of people do not behave like that with the power that they have. I think the idea that Cozy proposed would be really helpful. Howard, I love you. We don't have to agree on everything, you know?
No,
And no, I was just saying, because like, as I was listening to Daryl, I've been trained in not as in depth because my dad's not a police officer. He knows how it works more or less, but Daryl definitely has a lot more in-depth training than I do. And so just getting like the step-by-step guide to make sure that you survive the encounter so that you can take it to court if you need to, but you can't take it to court if you're dead, is what my dad always told us. It would be really helpful because we just want to make sure that everybody's safe. And we can't have any real influence on how the police are trained, but we do have control over how we train ourselves. And so I think it'll be really positive if we could do something like that. I think that'll be great.
We'll do it and post it on Parkour's Black Equity.
Yeah.
I know it's at 12:45, but mental health, you guys know that's like my new ship, or been my ship.
Yeah.
I think ways as to how we take space for that, because that was a question, how we take space for it going forward. You know, we do have a lot of frustration and fear, and as Dan said, we're coming from different examples that we kind of funnel into the same of it, right? I don't know what to call it, but we got the feeling. I would say for everyone here, and even for the listeners, the way a lot of us Black men, or even Black people, because there is the idea of the men and women in parkour and then the Black people in parkour, we literally take time in stillness. We do a lot of movement and we find our meditation there, but we're not getting over it. We're finding ways to, I don't want to use compartmentalize, we're finding ways to breathe in it. Because we need you too. We need you to hear us and understand that we're still dealing with it too.
Yeah.
When you hear us express our feelings, and just like David said, we don't have to agree. And I don't think Cozy or anybody's wrong. We do need to continue creating this atmosphere of safety. But that's the well-being. Creating the atmosphere is the well-being, is the way we cope. It's almost like something Brian was mentioning earlier, and it got me thinking of another example of it. Like, we get a beating, and then we get it like, this is gonna hurt you more than me, you know? Or my dad used to tell me to go get the belt. Go get the belt.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that belt. Go get another one. Go get that switch. And so I'm going to get something for my own punishment that I'm supposed to learn from. And then you step out in America that we exist in, and it's almost the same thing. So our wellness is our peace amongst each other to accept each other's story and maybe not fully or directly relate, but know that it's there and know that, and it is generational trauma, yes. And it's for us to change it now. We can continue looking back and continue, I gotta take a second, remembering the deaths. But it's not gonna change it if we don't change. And the change is gonna hurt so much, it's almost like we're beating each other. I want you to up your game. I want you to get better with training with each other. If you can't cork, fuck your cork. Do your backflip and let's still train together. Don't do like they do. They keep separating themselves based on moves. Fuck is that? Our wellness is when our growth.
Strong.
Well said, Howard.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about like the last bit of conversation before kind of moving into a closing, and that's about like the Daryl video idea of like coming up with a video of like how can we like better handle police situations. And I guess like what I'm hearing is like, oh yeah, that'd be a good idea, and it's like yes. And how are you not to apologize for that? Have your feelings. And it's like, yeah, we like that would be a good idea if we did that video. Like I accept that over here, but like also over here, it's like the fact that that has to happen. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like we live in a world where we're like, you know what we should do? We should make a video so that when the police roll up, we don't die. And it's like, damn, some people are just worried about getting groceries. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's my piece on that. I do think we should make the video. It's just like, damn, like that's part of the experience. I think a lot of that I really want to share is like having to think about that, having to think like, oh, we should make a video so we don't die. And then the other thing I wanted to say, touching on Howard's like beautiful last sentiment, is that in 2020, one thing that I kind of learned is when a lot of these racial situations are happening, a lot of people are immediately like, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? What can I do to fix this? Where can I do this? And I'm like, be uncomfortable. Because what a lot of that is it's an urge for people to be like, how can I immediately feel as comfortable as possible? Right. That's why people argue. That's why people put the Black Lives Matter signs in their lawns. That's why they call their friends and go, what can I do? It's just like, you're trying really hard to be comfortable again. And I get that because that's human. We want to get back to like being comfortable, but it's like, but I think I could speak for everyone in this chat that's like, we don't get to be. So if we really want to help, stay uncomfortable and learn what it feels like. And then use that empathy to like help realize how some people feel, so you can get into that headspace and then move forward with it. So, you know, because I think that's the hardest thing, is like, at least I can speak for myself here, is like one of the hardest parts about watching the Black Lives Matter movement of last year was kind of standing there and being like, well, I wonder how long this is going to last, you know?
Yeah.
And everyone goes back to work and they're like, that was fun. And you're like, still here.
Pandemic kind of helped, right? Everyone was now working. I did want to piggyback off of what you said, Brian, because I think you hit something really valuable when you said be uncomfortable. It is so important, especially because this isn't like a quick fix type of situation. It's not like we can do one thing and it's better. And it's also what we're going up against, like racism in the United States, is generations old, and it is literally rooted in the consciousness of every single person that exists here in this country. Like, you can't escape it, you know? It's like one of those things, like you have a room that smells like poop right? But you have like a towel in the room, you have a shirt in the room, you have some socks in the room, and everything that you touch in that room is gonna smell like poop because the poop's in the room. Like you just can't escape it. It's all there, right? And it's something we have to come to terms with, the fact that there's poop in the room, and we have to be in that. We have to sit with the poop, and then we
On top of that, we need to stop staying in the room and just letting ourselves get used to the smell of the room, you know?
Right, yeah, instead of sitting with it.
Jordan, I don't smell that. What you
Yeah, there's poop in the room.
haven't smelled the
And
Delta?
also listen to what Black people have to say. Listen to their stories and elevate them. That is like, you do so much just by not speaking and creating room for others. It literally offers so much. Even the fact that we're having this conversation right now is like, this is one of the most radical things anyone can do.
History.
Is listen. It is so important. So important. That's all I got.
Well, we're about at time. So I want to go like one more circle around and just ask everyone to say like your last piece, I guess, like moving forward, what you're going to do, what you want people to do, or like how this conversation has changed you. Last thing I kind of want to say is like back to that question that somebody asked of like, how do you maintain a sense of play when all of this is a factor? I think this definitely touches on this, but it also touches on being an adult sometimes. A very social person to me once told me, he said, one of the hardest things that people can do, one of the bravest things that someone can do is let themselves be happy. And I really do. I didn't understand it when he said it. I understand it now. And it's one of those things where I think like learning to be playful is protest.
Yeah.
Like being in this situation and still being able to play, like it's a form of protest. Because like, don't let them take away the joy that you deserve because you're human. So yeah. Dan, I'll throw it to you first.
Wow, that was great.
Thanks.
Man, Brian does not miss. I see everyone keeps saying it in the chat. He's hitting with pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's the predator, bro. He's the predator.
Hitting it with that infrared.
Yo, for real. Well, I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now. I think most of all, I'm like super thankful that we are even having this conversation and that this space exists. And my commitment now and always is to be here and show up when I'm needed. And that goes like not just for Black issues, for everything. And like because I've shown up, I have like access to all the people on the screen right now. And that's like a really powerful thing for me. So yeah.
I'd like to chime in real quick. As Brian was saying about the feel uncomfortable thing, I think that's really important just because like that's generally the state of dis-ease is very common for me, just like it just becomes normal after a while. And so for people who are here that are not Black and don't have to think about this all the time, I just want you to like try to internalize the idea that lots of Black people, not all Black people, I can't talk for all Black people, but lots of Black people constantly think about race and talk about race because it's necessary. One, for our survival, but also two, just like so you don't go crazy, because like especially with like the new version of racism nowadays, like people won't just come out and call you nigger. Like they don't do it, but it's still the same idea is what's motivating their behavior. And if you never think like, oh, they're just being racist, this is what this is coming from, you'll start to internalize it yourself and be like, oh, there's something wrong with me, when really the problem is in society or the person that you're interacting with. And so like I've had conversations a lot of times with people from abroad that are like, David, you like always talk about race. Like if we talk long enough, you're gonna bring up being black. And I'm like, because if I don't, then it will lead to my erasure. Like, because I'll either like lose it and just not have it together anymore, or something that effect, you know? And so like understand where we're coming from. When it seems like race is coming up often, it's because there's a reason for that. And if we don't talk about it, then people will be like, people won't know the history, people will forget stuff. And I'll tell people all the time about like Black Wall Street, what happened there, how people were like literally dropping dynamite out of planes to blow up Black businesses and Black generational wealth. And people are like, that happened? Oh my gosh, no way. And I'm like, yes, this is real. Like,
What movie was that?
no, this wasn't a movie. This
This
wasn't like,
movie?
no, it was real,
Yeah,
you know?
and
so,
like 100 years ago, like it wasn't that long
exactly.
ago. Yeah.
Dude, it's less
not
than
that
30
long
years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
And so just, I want people to like understand why we talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, it's uncomfortable for everybody else. So we'll just try to sweep it under the rug and no one will remember. All right. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind and understand where we're coming from for that. Anyways, unfortunately, I got to dip out a little early because it's my dad's 60th birthday and I love him.
birthday,
So I
Dad.
gotta go.
Happy birthday.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Hey,
Yeah.
he
Speaking of my
made
dad,
it.
Thanks for coming through,
right,
man.
right?
Yeah.
Speaking of my
Yeah.
dad, this reminds me of Daryl's dad. It makes me so sad that we have to have people who have power in society in order to be protected from the police. Like, hey, why don't you talk to my dad, who's the person that prosecutes everyone? You should talk to him so that you'll stop giving me BS. Or Daryl has to say, hey, you should talk to my dad because he's a police officer too. When really we should just be getting respected because we're humans and we're citizens of this country and all that stuff. So we should be treated properly. But that's not how it is, and that makes me really sad. Anyways,
Hey, but happy birthday to your dad.
Happy
Right?
birthday to your
Thank you
dad,
all
man.
so
Thank you
much
for
for
being
having
here.
me
Thank you for
today.
your input.
This was awesome, and I'm so proud of how OG's forming out to be, and like just keep up the good work. I love you all.
Love you.
Thanks for
too.
being
Love,
that
brother.
man. We'll
All
see you soon.
Peace out, everybody. Can't wait.
I'll take the torch real quick, and after I'm done, I'll pass it over to Daryl. Ending piece. I think we just got to keep working on the inclusion factor, finding ways and creating platforms. Parkour Black Equity is out here. Strike Movement is out here. OG is out here. If anything, if there's anybody else, keep coming through. Do our best to try to show love. You know, we all got to eat. So at the end of the day, in good ways, we find ways to help each other eat. I don't know if we'll ever find the answer. As old as I am and as old as I promote, you know, Daryl talks about being the best. I want to be the best 40-year-old Black guy in parkour. You know, like I just want to be that motherfucker. And it doesn't matter if it happens or not. It's just part of my life. And I want the inclusion to continue, you know, people having the freedom to think that way and then having a platform to want to share it on. So the inclusion just looks like work. And we know we're no stranger to work. So it's just finding ways to support. Ian put it out there, like how can a white person or any other race find ways to support? I don't have your answer, bro. I think the best thing is just get with me, get with us, hang out with us. I don't know, but you don't need to do anything for us. Just stop doing shit to us. You understand? Like, let us have our space. And in that way, maybe you talk to the cops for me instead of me having to go through a whole procedure that I learned from Daryl's dad. You know, like things like that. That's my 2 cents, you know, just like keep showing up for us and we'll keep doing our best to show up for ourselves and for any environment that we're included in.
Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl and then Marquise. And...
I gotta text my dad right quick and tell him he's a star up in this piece. Yo, Dad, you made it. 55 years, dog. You made it. I mean, you know, my closing statement, I guess, will be thank you, hashtag Daryl's dad. I'll tell him. His name's Daryl too. But you know, I think that there's a very important thing that every one of us, I'm talking not just us as like some Black people in parkour, but like everybody that is involved in this space that we happen to coexist in with each other, or are at least attempting to coexist in with each other. We need to address the truths. And really quick, Dan, can I out you real quick? Like, can I just? Okay, cool. Last year, I told Dan he was on Squadron. I told him that, and I told him that specifically to see like if he was down for it, if he was cool with it, because I'm not just gonna assume. But you know, dude was like, I was hoping that this would, and I was like, oh shit, he was really okay, cool. So I read him well enough. But I I added Dan because what Squadron is. I made Squadron with my boy Garrett, and if any of you guys don't know Garrett, at Sir Jeeves on Instagram, this is one of my best friends of all time, white dude, and like he's really down for all of this, and he's also like he's a real friend, and there are times where he doesn't understand, and if I check him, he'll like respond the way that you would expect a normal thinking person to respond, like, oh shit, I didn't even, now that you said that, I didn't even realize, you know what I mean, and he'll flip it. So you know, people like him, I think in this sport, as white people, have taken it almost upon themselves to be an advocate, and not just a me and him advocate, but I'm talking like when we have these conversations every single day, political conversations, which blackness is not political, just so everybody knows. That's human shit. Like that's real life shit. So it's not political to talk about our experiences, but we have those conversations about, you know, politics and how that's affecting us, and how often that's specifically affecting marginalized communities like Black communities, like women in general, like LGBTQ people in general, like those specifics. We have those conversations. We have conversations about, you know, the lack of acknowledgement in society of our existence, of our struggles, or even of our greatness and our history. So we have those conversations. We also have conversations about the influence outside of America. I mean, all of Europe profited off of slavery. All of Europe had a hand in slavery, and I think that the detached nature that the largest portion of the community has in the EU, and you know, those are my homies out there. Those are your homies out there. Like we love you guys, but you know, I will not stand for your detachment and still call you my friend. You know what I mean? When I know for a fact that the UK had a large hand in colonialism, the biggest hand actually in colonialism, and a massive hand in the transatlantic slave trade, I'm not going to be quiet about that. That's something that is important that you recognize if you recognize your ancestry, or if you're lucky enough or privileged enough to not have to recognize your history. I'm not privileged enough to not have to recognize your history and its implications on me and my people. So I think, you know, it's immensely important for us, as much as we love the homies from Store, as much as we love Modus, as much as we love all the homies from out there. I think it is important for us to make certain that they acknowledge, because every one of them profits off of it. They use hip hop culture, hip hop fashion, like streetwear was created by us. You know, and it's not that they can't partake and participate and share in the culture, but you gotta give love to the truth, you know, the culture, the people that bred it, and you definitely have to give some advocacy for our history, and the, you know, the oppressive the oppressive milestones that have been experienced by us, our grandparents, our great grandparents, us right here today, and be a part of actually shutting that shit down. So I definitely believe that, from this being my closing statement, that is the reason why I created Squadron. That's the reason why I said Dan needs to be on this damn team. Dan is out here doing exactly what we say everybody needs to be doing, and it's another another instance where a Black person is trying to solve his own problems. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I added Dan. That's why you know, it's my obligation as the leader of this team to be a part of sharing his story and his glory and his greatness, as well as everybody else on this team. Shout out Mondo. I know you're in this chat. And that's also the reason why, hey, we don't make a lot of money. I could show you guys the bank account right now. We don't make a lot of money, but no matter how much or how little we make, we are out here trying to put our profits into real shit for real people. We donate 10% of all of what we make to all of these different organizations that are out here on the ground doing the work. Whether we make $100, whether we make $1,000, like, we're donating, it doesn't matter. And if it doesn't come from Squadron, it's going to come out my pocket. And that's the way that it goes out here. So what I'm saying is, and my closing statement is not necessarily that y'all all got to go cop Squadron all the time. What I'm saying is we need to hold everybody to that standard as best as we can. And really quickly, that's not the website, but I'll there you go, right there, forthesquad.com. I'll tell you guys that story way later. But yeah, love all y'all, and that's my closing statement there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I'm so
You're
sorry.
good, man. You're
Okay. Yeah, Daryl, I was like, should I let everybody know right now, or is this like something we're keeping on the down low? But since
That's
we're
why I
saying
threw
that,
up the S's. That's why I threw up the
okay,
S's. I was like, let them know.
I'm part
go
of
ahead.
Squadron. That's all.
Gang,
All right.
Let's go. What a great place for that announcement to happen.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I'm
our
with it.
space.
Yeah.
And look how we love it, yo. Props.
Earned. That's dope.
All right. On to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, in closing for me, real quick, I am so glad this went smoothly. I came in here so nervous, feeling like I often feel very detached. I grew up like in Georgia, North Carolina, predominantly in the suburbs. My family legitimately moved from the more urban and project-based areas in New Jersey to, you know, have different opportunities, but also I got removed from a lot of, you know, experiences that my family has had. And then that shaped kind of my own perspective of ignorance growing up. And then all it took was me turning 15 and getting a little bigger for me to find out, you know? So to just hear from my peers that the stories are so similar from different areas and things like that, that really sits with me. And to have a community growing inside of community is the most valuable thing that I could find.
Absolutely. Oh, I really resonated with that.
Dang.
All right. I'm gonna close it up because I gotta use the bathroom really bad.
We gotta go.
But I can't explain how grateful I am for how this went and for everybody's perspectives. Everybody in the chat, to see it like bouncing is so cool. We got 49 attendees, 50 at some point. Thank you everybody showing up. Our next talk is at 12:30. So same place, be here. I'll be on about 10-15 minutes before. But once again, thank you everybody for showing up. This is amazing. And we will be posting these on YouTube at some point in the near future.
Perfect.
But yeah,
Everybody enjoy the intermission, get some food, do your thing. We're back at it soon.
get some snacks.
Later.
Thank you.
Thug life, peace. Thug life,
Hey,
peace.
guys. Yep.
Peace.
I love everybody. All right, bye.
I gotta kind of just wait for everybody to fall off. I think I gotta keep this live. I don't know if I can go back into practice mode.
You good, Marquise? I got the recording as well, the whole thing. So
You are amazing. Thank you, sir.
likewise.